So you've mentioned your optimal lineups typically have been your zero RBs. That's the strategy you lean towards the most. So when you do that, when are you first targeting running backs, and who are some guys that you are most often landing with that?
Yeah, because I've now done a bunch of drafts on Underdog, and it's a little different like in FFPC for managed leagues because it does skew a little more running back heavy there. But on Underdog, I like thinking of them as detours. Like I want to be drafting these pass catchers, even the elite onesie position. So where am I taking my detours for running back? I do like taking it for the rookies. Williams, ETN there. Kareem Hunt has been falling. I like the detour there. And one thing I should also mention, because the dead zone conversation has become so prevalent, there are actually dead zone running backs that I'm taking because Chris Carson, I got him in the late 5th of a draft the other day. And you'll see, I just did a draft where I was at 512 and Miles Sanders went at 511. Like I'm taking him there every time. So the further that these guys get pushed down, the more willing I am to take them. But the next pocket after those rookies, I would say, is I'm often grabbing like a Trey Sermon or a Raheem Mostert. I like those guys a lot. And then there's another pocket like the Zach Moss, Ronald Jones. And then the real sweet spot is after that. There's the Tony Pollard. There was the Darrell Henderson. He was my 4th highest owned running back because he was often my 2nd or 3rd running back I was taking in my zero RB build. So there's a lot of nice pockets. And then you can move further back in the draft. And if you do need to just get some production, you have your James Whites, your JG McKissicks, your Gio Bernards that you know are going to catch a decent amount of passes. Nyheim Hines is another guy I draft a lot. So I like thinking of it as the pockets of the draft where I take the detours and what is the type of production they're going to give me.
Yeah, I love that. You're getting your earlier guys that maybe early in the season you could bank on, some guys in case there's an injury like a Pollard that would explode and really vaunt while you're waiting for that upside to hit. You got those earlier guys, plus the pass catchers as well that can balance that out. The Gio Bernards, the James Whites will always be getting you that 10, 11 point floor ceiling. Like there's not much to them. I like that. It is a whole different variance to what you're targeting. Typically, how many running backs do you draft within your best ball rosters? Is it different if you've gone that anchor running back versus if you're going pure zero? Or how does that work in terms of how many you slot in for your teams?
Yeah, I push it a little bit to the extremes, but I would say in general, if I draft a running back early, like say I get, let's say an Antonio Gibson, and then I even grab one of those rookies like a Javonte Williams, I'm stopping at 4. I think most people are still probably going 5 there. In my zero RB builds, I'm generally going 5. I did do a draft with Zach Kruger from RotoViz this morning where we didn't get our first running back until I think it was Damian Harris pretty late in like the 8th or 9th. And we ended up going 6 running backs on that just because we had done so many wide receivers early. So I would say I'm generally between 4 to 6 with how I build. On that hyper fragile team I mentioned with Christian McCaffrey, Najee, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I actually only did 3. With the whole idea being like, I have 3 studs. I got 2 running back slots on Underdog in the flex. If this team is going to work out, all 3 of these guys are going to smash. What good is a JD McKissic doing me in this lineup? Like, I don't need his points. I'm getting the ceiling points from these guys. So yeah, anywhere between 3 to 6, depending on that structure.
Love it. Yeah. And before we move to other positions and looking at ADP, just to reiterate a great point you made in that video on Establish the Run, the teams that took 0 running backs early were 6 total or 7 total with 0 early were 2 of the highest percent wins, 15% league win and 12%. So 27% league percent by 0 early running backs. And that's a huge edge with very, very few teams employing that. Only 233 and 166 teams did 0 RB, yet they beat the field at 27% high rate. So that's important to note too. The stats back the strategy up, as tricky as it can be. I'm a running back guy, so I have a very hard time when I'm trying to build these rosters of not going running back. That Clyde Edwards-Helaire one you just raved about, that's my type of build, but the stats don't necessarily improve that. So I'm doing my best, as you mentioned, to diversify the portfolio, force myself into some of these 0 running back builds. And it's very interesting to see how they come out. So
good I would say too, like it's just the way I prefer building. But one of those tips that were in there is like, you can draft running backs early. It is completely okay. How Justin Herzig won Best Ball Mania. And it's how Justin's still drafting now. Like, you got guys like me and Eric Beimfor, and some of us are really pushing like the 0 RB to the max. But Justin's still drafting 3 running backs early in almost all of his builds. So the sharpest players are still doing it. But the point we made in the video is you can draft them early, but you can't draft them early and often. Like once you draft those 3, you can't draft more than 1 more, because you have to work under the assumption that you crushed it with those 3 picks. And now you need to make up for wide receiver with the amount of wide receivers you're taking.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.